There is only one salad on earth that I'll never get bored of, and it is this tangy Lebanese fattoush. The most important component to make a perfect fattoush is your fattoush vinaigrette, and I've got an incredible recipe for you. It's a tangy sweet and sour dressing that layers 5 different acidic ingredients to get to a perfectly rounded flavour. The first element in the vinaigrette is sumac, a sour and fruity spice which grows all over the world and is key to Lebanese cuisine. To awaken the spice and get as much flavour out of it as possible, we first need to bloom the sumac just like you do with ground coffee. Take 3 teaspoons of finely ground sumac and place them in a small bowl or plate. Next, pour over a couple tablespoons of boiling water, then stir that into the sumac and allow this to sit on the counter for a few minutes. The water will rehydrate the sumac and give us a punchier flavour than just using it dry. The second and third element are our lemon zest and lemon juice. While the sumac is blooming, take a large lemon and then use a zester to zest about a quarter of your lemon skin into fine strands. I'm going to be doubling the recipe, so on my end I'm doing half the lemon, and you should be left with loads of fragrant zest like this. Set that aside and then using the same zester or grater, grate a clove of garlic into as fine a paste as possible. Now you need to juice your lemon, so I sliced it in half and used this lemon juicer which keeps out all of the flesh and seeds. You should be left with about 2.5 tablespoons of lemon juice. Into a jug or bowl add your freshly bloomed sumac with all of the liquid, then pour in the lemon juice. Follow that up with 3 tablespoons or about 50 milliliters of olive oil, and it was at this point that I realised the jar I was using was way too small for the recipe. After transferring that to a jug, I added in the fourth sour element, which is 3 tablespoons of pomegranate molasses. This sticky stuff can be a pain to measure, but because we just measured oil in the same spoon, it's slipping right out. Here's what usually happens with an unoiled spoon. Now a quick note, there are 2 types of pomegranate molasses, one's made from 100% pomegranate juice and others which usually add sugar. If you're using a 100% pomegranate one, you might need to add some sugar to the dressing if it isn't sweet enough. And if you're wondering where you can get this pomegranate molasses, I've got a full video for how to make and use it on the channel. To finish off the dressing, add in the lemon zest and grated garlic, then add half a teaspoon of dried mint, a quarter teaspoon of salt, and an eighth of a teaspoon of black pepper. The fifth acidic ingredient is 1 teaspoon of white vinegar. Once you've added that, you're ready to mix. I used my stick blender here to blend it all together, and while you could shake it together in a jar, the stick blender really helped to emulsify it into a smooth vinaigrette. This fattoush dressing has such a satisfying texture, and because it has emulsified well, it is really able to coat vegetables with a delicious layer. At home, I like to double up this recipe so I can have it on hand for when I want to put together a quick salad. Once sealed in a jar, the dressing will keep in the fridge for around 2 weeks or longer, and that means fattoush is always at arm's reach. The other important component in fattoush is crispy Pitta croutons, and you might as well close the video if you aren't going to make these. They give the salad a crunchy bite, which along with the crispness of the vegetables makes for a perfect mouthful. What you'll need are 2 to 3 thin pita breads like these, and they'll make a ton of croutons that you can store on the counter for a few weeks. Cut the bread into strips, then into squares about 2.5 centimeters wide, so you're left with a pile like this. Now prepare a plate by laying on some kitchen towels, then place a pan on your stove and fill it with about 1.5 centimeters of vegetable oil. Let that heat on high heat, then in a few minutes test it by dipping a piece of bread in the oil. If it bubbles like this, you can begin adding the bread in batches, and then fry it for about a minute. Once it starts to turn golden like this, fish out the bread using a spider or slotted spoon, then place it onto your plate to drain off the excess oil. While the bread is still hot, you'll want to hit it with some sea salt and freshly ground black pepper. These pita chips are incredible, and they'll go great on anything that needs a textural crunch. Now if you're of the health conscious kind, you might not want fried bread in your salad, and in that case you can make the baked pita chips which I demonstrated in my chicken fatta video. And now we get to the fun part, chopping all of the vegetables for the salad, which by the way makes like 4 large portions. Both the dressing and bread can be made ahead of time and used whenever needed, but a fattoush needs to be crisp, so you should only chop the vegetables shortly before serving. The traditional ingredients for this are mint and parsley, radishes, lettuce, cucumbers, spring onions and tomatoes, all of which will be chopped chunky. First take 3 to 4 small cucumbers like these, then slice them in half and cut them into semicircles about 3mm wide. Add these into a large bowl, then we'll do 4 spring onions. Remove the root, then slice these into rounds about 2mm wide. Chop this until you get to the darker bits of the spring onion, which we don't want in the salad. Add them to the bowl, and then next is a whole head of lettuce. Somehow my lettuce was really dirty and needed a good wash, so I separated all the layers and washed them thoroughly. Stack the leaves on top of each other, then make a couple of cuts either side of the stem, and then cut the whole thing into strips about 1 cm wide. In terms of radishes, you need about 6 to 8 medium ones or 10 small ones. You'll start by topping and tailing them, then you need to cut them into thin but even slices. Cutting them by hand gives you very different results, so I did mine on the small adjustable mandolin to get uniform slices. In terms of tomatoes, you need 3 to 4 plum tomatoes, which you should cut in half, then chop to about the same size as the cucumber. I did this with 3 horizontal cuts and then chopped them into chunks. For the parsley, you'll need about 10 sprigs, which you'll remove the thicker stems from. After that, you'll roughly chop it until it looks like this. Take 3 sprigs of mint, then pick off the leaves from the stems. Stack them on top of each other, then roll them up and slice them into thin ribbons. I also like to add some pomegranate seeds, which is usually used as a garnish, but I find it nice in the salad as well. Add about 3 to 4 tablespoons to the bowl, and then we're ready to assemble. Right before serving, pour the whole dressing over the salad mix. You don't want to do this early, otherwise the vegetables can wilt. Break out a couple of salad spoons and then get to mixing it all together. What you're looking for is for all of your vegetables to be coated in a thin layer of the dressing, and that means every bite will be super tangy. Also, it might be tempting to mix in some of the bread, but it will get soggy, so please don't. Plate this up by laying a thick bed of the salad in a plate or bowl, and then top it with a handful or 2 of the crispy bread. Top it with some pomegranate seeds for garnish, then add on a few ribbons of mint. And then to bring it all together, give it a little sprinkle of some finely crushed sumac. You can also drizzle this with a little extra pomegranate molasses, and then it's ready to enjoy. Let's dig in. Truly the best. You really can't beat these flavours in a salad. Sweet, tangy, crispy and crunchy. It really is the perfect salad. Now click here if you're interested in more Middle Eastern salads.